record.
Okay.
Do you know what you want to say? Visualize it first before you visualize it before you speak it. It's going to help a lot. Just think a little bit. You're really thinking hard.
I got this.
Okay.
What's up, buds? And welcome to the new episode of the Earbuds Podcast, the podcast where two friends talk about one good album for a certain amount of time. We are your hosts, Ash, Harkin,
Bermuda Triangle,
Harkin, Butterfly, Flies, Hannerhan, and I am Lucas. It's only another parsec or something like that, Intercobs. And today we're going to be talking about, spoiler alert, Ash's favorite Rx Bandits record. And, it's in my top 5. So we'll get into that.
Wow, top 5 out of like 7 records.
Yeah, so
prestigious.
So good. But we're going to be talking about Mandala, however you want to pronounce it, by the Rx Bandits. Yeah. Dude, it's been 14 years since this album came out, which is so fucking trippy to think about.
That's crazy, man.
And you know this album because of like Guitar Hero or something, right?
Yeah, it was. I believe it was Guitar Hero, some Guitar Hero or another, and it had just another parsec on it. And what a crazy introduction!
Yeah, it's so crazy to have this album be your intro to Rx Bandits. It's almost like the only other record that's even like a less of a representation of what Rx Bandits used to be is Gemini Her Majesty. Like, this is such a weird step for Rx Bandits, but I mean, to have It's Only Another Parsec, or It's Only a Parsec, some of these titles are too long for me. To have that be like your intro to Rx Bandits is badass though, because that's such a good fucking song.
It's a great song, and it fucking definitely hits hard with the drummer absolutely thrashing, doing some kind of drum pattern that I've never been able to decipher.
And I mean,
whatever he's doing.
Dude, Chris is killing it on the drums on this whole record, but also riffs that you have never heard from Rx Bandits before. Like these kind of like metal inspired almost riffs that they have.
Yeah, they progress once again. They're going even further in their journey with this one. The last album to come out before this was "And the Battle Begun."
Love that, if I remember,
man. And from there, it's their first album as a 4-piece.
Yes,
where they kind of got rid of the horns. They appear once or twice on the album, but they've really kind of gotten rid of that section of their music.
Yeah.
They're a lot more proggy. They're working in weird time signatures. They're kind of meandering a lot more than they were on previous records.
Yes, they're way more trippy on this album than they ever have been before. And that kind of goes into my expectation of this record when I first heard it. Because I bought this album the day it came out. Rx Bandits had already been like cemented as my favorite band of all time by this point. Heard Progress for the first time like in 2001. Then Resignation came out that completely fucking blew me away. And the Battle Begun came out that completely fucking blew me away. But you hear in the Battle Begun, you hear that transition already happening. Of like, whoa, they're starting to get really like like you say proggy, but it's I don't mean this to be like condescending or diminishing what they're doing, but it's a Mars Volta ripoff. Some of the stuff that they're doing, it just sounds like that to me, because I was really into Mars Volta at the time also, and it really confused me.
I think the Mars Volta comparison makes sense, but I think if you said that this album is a Mars Volta ripoff, I think that's ridiculous. I think that's fucking crazy.
It's too harsh. But I think it's obviously very inspired by that type of rock music, if not directly inspired from Mars Volta. And it's funny because whenever we were reviewing, do you remember like we reviewed the new Mars Volta record like 6 months
Yeah.
ago or whatever, and I
Yeah.
said where I thought this album was a cheap imitation of Mars Volta, like this record that we're talking about today. The new Mars Volta record sounded like a cheap imitation of RX Bandits trying to do
Yeah.
Mars Volta, and
Yeah.
it gave me a way more appreciation for this record. But going into it, I knew that there weren't going to be horns on this album, and I was already really nervous to hear this record before it even came out. Like, they announced that there weren't going to be horns on it, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because the horns were some of my favorite elements of their previous music before this record
But
came out.
it had been pretty obvious, even since the resignation, that the horns were kind of fading out of the kind of base of the band.
Yeah, for sure. They were being used less because the band was less and less ska as time went on. But
Yeah.
I thought that it really made them stand out amongst the crowd of like rock and punk and reggae because of the way that they used the horns. Like, for a prog rock band to have horns like that, like, because by the time they got to Resignation, they're almost just a rock band at that point.
Yeah.
Like, they're not really ska anymore, but they have that backbone. But just the way that they use the horns were like it was so unique. It was like the band that I always wanted to be in was that era of RX Bandits. So it honestly took many listens for this album to grow on me. And now I fucking love it. But it was a long journey to get there. Not gonna lie.
What were some of your original gripes about it, and how has your view on this album changed since then?
Well, I still miss the horns. Even
Sure.
listening to it now.
I remember you saying that they kind of took the horns out because it limited their mobility.
Mm-hmm.
Their musical mobility. I think that's bullshit, and I always have thought it's bullshit because it'd be so easy to put horns on these songs if they
so
wanted
many
to.
of these songs, right? But I think so that is the only bit of kind of like behind the scenes info that I have personally that I conducted because I interviewed Steve Choi,
Which you never fail to bring up.
which is one of the best moments of my life, followed by one of the worst moments of my life.
Yeah, when he thought you insulted him to his fucking face.
I mean, he literally. It was just such a bad joke that I said, and he clearly got upset from it. Steve, if you
I
listen
feel
to
like
this,
he took it. I feel like he took it bad. I don't think it was that bad.
I mean, it was an inappropriate joke. I shouldn't have said it. Like, I'm gonna interview this guy that you kind of, sort of, maybe talked down about, but not really. And I was like, I'm gonna tell him next week that you talk shit about him. Like, that's not a funny joke, And he was thinking, like, dude, what the fuck? Like, no, don't mess with my career and shit like that.
I think for a dude who's like talked to radio hosts who would do something like that,
Yeah.
who like will go out and get that drama and like get that fucking
I don't know
juicy.
how many shock jocks Steve Choi has spoken to.
Probably a lot.
Maybe.
Probably a lot.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm getting his name right. But I interviewed him, and it was right around this time. It was like 2010, I think, maybe an hour after this, or a year after this came out. And
wow, you got the exclusive. You got the fucking
after
scoop.
the album came out. But yeah, that's what he told me, was that they felt that the horns were kind of limiting their scope of the type of music they could write, and that they always felt like they needed to write a part in every song that the horns could easily play over or write over. But it turns out that like the horns weren't really a big part of their songwriting process from the jump. Like, the core band would all write the songs and then send them to the horn players, and the horn players would come up with their parts. Like, it's not like the horn players were like present at the time. So that was kind of an interesting tidbit also, because I would assume that they were all in the same room every time when they were recording. But yeah, sure. So Steve told me that, and I kind of get it, but then going back and listening to this record again, I agree that they could have had so many horns on this album, and they have horns on 2 songs, and it's like, I don't really like how they use them.
It's not like there are notes that the horns couldn't hit.
Yeah, I think they added something really even more like uniqueness to this record.
I would have enjoyed it. I think it was more personal than technical. If I had to be asked, which I was by me,
Right.
I think there's more drama there than they let on.
I think you're right. There's something there that they never really came out and said why the horns left or what it like, if it was amicable or not. And I've looked up interviews about this record, and they just kind of say, oh yeah, once so and so and what's his face left, we were able to kind of go, like, I think there was some tension there that they never really put out there, which is whatever, it's no one's fucking business. But I'll say that for kicking the horns out and then still having horns on a couple of songs is weird, because it's not the dude.
That's
it's not
quite a power move.
which kind of makes me think also that something happened between all of them, because the horns that they did get on this album are not those two guys that they worked with previously. It's horns from like the English Beat, like this ska band from the UK that they used like the horn section or something. And the way that they used it was almost like avant-garde, jazzy type horns. So I didn't like the way that they used them. But those were kind of my gripes. It was such a departure for their songwriting, and having no horns, having very little reggae, ska, even punk like involvement in some of these songs was also a gripe that I had.
I would say, if I could speak for you, which I will.
Oh, great.
I think probably a lot less focus on like catchy choruses, or
that's how I felt originally. Because
so
even the riffs were hard for me to accept, because they were very not Rx Bandits-y riffs to me.
Yeah.
And they're so fucking good, but it took me a long time to get used to them and understand them and accept it, to be honest.
Appreciate them with the band.
Yeah, because they were already doing similar things on And the Battle Begun a little bit, but man, they just like really let themselves indulge on this album. And it's just like, even like, what song am I listening to right now? Like Hanker, Hearts That Hanker for Mistake.
Hearts that hanker for mistake. All right.
Like that, like even that, it's so fucking cool. But in 2009, I was like, dude, what the fuck is this, man?
You just couldn't hang at the time.
I just wasn't ready.
No, it sounds right.
But the album starts out so Rx Bandits-y. Like that Lonesome Only Friend is such an Rx Bandits song. It's so resignation, angry, catchy.
Yeah. It almost kind of deceives you with the first kind of couple songs.
Yeah. Yeah. But then because right after Lonesome Only Friend, the whole rest of the album just like goes so off the rails that I was like, whoa, what a, like that again, Hearts That Hanker for Mistake is that chorus, that do, it's fucking weird. And I hated it. But man, going back to it now,
you could tell they definitely like something happened and they opened up a whole other world for themselves.
Yeah.
Riff wise, key wise, time signature wise.
Yeah. I mean, literally changing keys in the middle of a chorus. I forget what song did that, but it's like, whoa. Like
I think like March of the Caterpillar, right?
I can't, man.
Probably.
Fuck, I can't remember. I'd have to like go into, I have 3 pages of notes for this album.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
What would you say is like the most pertinent part of the notes that we can talk about?
I mean, it would be hard to kind of go into those details without automatically talking about my choice nugs. But March of the Caterpillar was like definitely one that took a long time to grow on me, but it's just so fucking good. The drums are just like, some kind of pattern between the rim of the snare, the hi-hat, and the snare itself, and it almost seems like random, but I think it's a set pattern. I just can't figure it out. It shouldn't work, but it does.
But it does.
And I love when the song gets like kind of more going, but then they don't really distort their guitars that much. So
Yeah.
it still has this kind of like prog rocky feel to it, and then it gets all trippy, and you have Matt singing his like ooh, ooh
Yeah.
thing that you've has that alone has inspired so many songs that I've written, like that part, that
Yeah.
singing
Sure.
part. And I'm pretty sure I ripped off a couple, like on a couple of Mortalis songs, like I ripped that off completely, where he's just like
Fucking let's go.
it's like like all this like reverb and vibrato and stuff on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and March of the Caterpillar is one of the only songs on the record that like doesn't really go anywhere. Like
It like I mean it goes places, but it never like really crescendos, I
there's no
guess. Is
clear
that
chorus in the song, and there's no obvious bridge or anything. It just kind of is. It's just kind of this
yeah.
piece of music that doesn't follow this traditional songwriting. And again, it's like, what a challenge for me, like fucking 22-year-old Lucas struggling,
Well, it's like no chorus in this one.
struggle bussing on that one. Yeah, exactly. Like no chorus, no bridge. Like the bridges were some of my favorite parts of any Rx Bandits record or song,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man, I think what kind of got me to turn around on it eventually was A, I got used to it. But B, when I started picking up on all the Latin inspired stuff on this album,
Yeah.
that got me to like, once I started noticing all those little Latin flavors that they mixed into this album, which they never really did before.
Yeah. There's like little Latiny riffs. There are like I think the drummer added like one or two kind of like kind of like drums on his
Yes,
set,
dude,
you
there's some
know?
wood blocks on here, some like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
There's like yeah, and there's a whole song where a good portion of it is Matt singing in Spanish, which is like he does it in a very like
he's trying his best.
he does it in a lack of like accent.
Yeah, he's not trying to like, he's not doing the
Which
fucking what's that shitty fucking ska band we listen to, the Interrupters.
oh yeah,
He's not doing what she
right.
did, where she put on that patois fucking that was so cringy. Like Matt is singing in Spanish, but doing it as a Southern California dude, not trying to fucking lay it
It's
on
like
thick or
very
anything.
aware of how white he is, and
Very aware,
like, and it's
but
like I go back and forth on like, is that cool? Is it not cool? Is it lame? But like, fine.
cool.
I go back and forth on
I
it.
think it's cool. I think it's kind of, a lot of people get so concerned about uh speaking another culture's language and worrying like, oh, am I appropriating? I'm some white guy speaking Spanish or speaking Italian or whatever. Like, are these people gonna like really hate me because I'm just some American dude speaking French? You know? And maybe the French is a bad example because I've heard that they notoriously hate non-native speakers. But I think most people are just like that you are trying. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and I hear
right.
Matt trying. He's trying on Mientras la veo soñar or whatever, and I think he pulled it off.
I think it's perfectly serviceable. I don't think anyone's got any complaints.
And the Latin parts didn't make, even when I started digging them and picking up on them, they still didn't make a lot of sense to me until recently, getting ready for this podcast and reading an interview.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this is not
Okay.
an interview I conducted, unfortunately.
Well, then why are we citing it?
I'll reference it. I'm not gonna reference the interviewer. I'm not giving them credit. But it turns out that after And the Battle Begun, Matt and Steve, I think together but also individually, started taking trips to South America, and they
Oh
spent
shit.
a lot of time actually hitchhiking in South America. And
Fuck.
Matt said that, obviously they'd hitchhike and the driver would be listening to music. And he said for the most part, it was stuff that he didn't like, which was like reggaeton and that type of kind of Latin dance music. But he said, he would hear salsa and he would hear these like local rock music and local like traditional music. And he said he started just loving it more and more and more and more. He kept going to South America and kept kind of like loving this culture and loving this kind of this vibe. And it's really cool that they were both able to come back from that and feel so into it that they wanted to
Yeah,
incorporate all
yeah.
that shit. I love that. Like when I read that, it made me love the album even more because I thought it was so from left field. But then you realize that no, they actually spent time down there and they absorbed all of this stuff and wanted to kind of incorporate it. And I think that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, man. It does it's not like the craziest transition.
It's really
Them
not.
incorporating these kind of like these Latin vibes into this music where they have kind of completely dropped like the ska reggae stuff for the most part on this
For
album.
the most part. When
But
it pops
like
up, I love it though.
the journey there, like it sounds like RX Bandits, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like they always sound like RX Bandits, and I don't know how, but
It's Matt. It's Chris. You know,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all the just perfect use of electric piano.
Yeah, which is
So them.
it's very it's I wouldn't say it's a focus of this album, but it's definitely
It's
it
all
takes
over
center
it.
stage a lot. There, it's all over.
It's
Yeah,
all over it. Like especially talking about like uh yeah, mientras that's so hard for me to say. Mientras la veo soñar.
yeah,
Man, the end of that song where they just have that jam.
yeah, yeah.
It's just so juiced. It's so juiced, and I love that it like builds up and builds up and builds up, and you think it's gonna explode, and then they just fucking cut it. Like, RX Bandits knows how to end a goddamn song, dude. God damn it.
That I would say those jammy parts are probably the most like Mars Volta inspired parts
Yeah,
of these
I
songs.
agree. I agree, but it almost is like a throwback RX Bandits thing too. Like
Yeah.
they did that on Progress, and they did that on Resignation, where all of a sudden the song would end, but then there would be this 30-second to like minute and a half jam, and usually the jam would lead into the next song. That's what they did on Progress a lot. Like almost every song on
Yeah.
Progress ended on a jammy thing that led to the next thing. On Resignation, it would almost be like an interlude. The way that they did
Mm.
it, it would just be kind of, it wouldn't follow the melody of the song that they had just played. It wouldn't set up the melody of the next track. It was just kind of like, hey, we have, because they record all this shit live, which I think is so, you hear it when they record
That's
it.
insane.
I
That's
love it.
fucking crazy.
I mean, obviously they're probably not doing like electric piano and everything. Maybe they are some of that stuff, but like they're recording all the core shit together in a room,
Yeah.
and you really hear that energy like when they do that, and it doesn't sound as like they're following their own rhythm. While Chris is an amazing drummer,
It's not like
it's
it
loose.
goes it's not like it goes off tempo.
No, I don't think I've ever
It's
heard them go off tempo.
no, it's just they're very tight, they're very solid, and they have a very good like they have a very good rhythm in their heads, very consistent, but there is that kind of like indescribable freedom there
Yeah,
that you can only ever feel and can't really like showcase, you know?
yeah, and you can't set that to a metronome or anything because there are moments in some of their songs that they speed up, and that's just what they're doing. They're doing it on
Yeah.
purpose, but you can't do that with a metronome. Leading the way there. So it's cool to hear that looseness and that kind of playfulness, and you especially hear it in all the jammy stuff that they do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
have you seen them live?
No, man. I've never
Fuck.
had the chance.
The moment you should get to please see them live. They're amazing live.
When the fuck are they playing again? I thought they were done.
I mean, I saw them in San Diego a year ago, but
I thought there was their farewell tour.
they had their farewell tour fucking 10 years ago, and now they're touring again. So who knows? But
All right,
I
well,
know Matt,
whatever.
actually, one of his side gigs is he plays with Dispatch, which is fucking awesome.
I haven't heard of them.
Dispatch.
Okay.
They have that song, The General.
Cool.
Like, oh, God, it's such a huge song. But he plays with them. And
bet.
have you heard of The Sound of Animals Fighting?
Yeah.
That's another side project with like Chris and Matt and everything. So they're actually touring Sound of Animals Fighting right now. And he's doing Dispatch shows also, Matt is. But that's something that's like a staple of theirs live, is that they do jams after every single song that lead into the next song. And it's really cool
Yeah.
how you can tell it's not really that planned, and they'll just all of a sudden, like they'll be doing something, and you'll just hear Chris. All of a sudden, will just go like, like all of a sudden he starts doing that kind of, and then everyone's like, oh, okay, cool, and then I'll start kind of playing it, and then I'll just bust out into the song. So it's cool to be able to like take that live stage energy and vibe and put it into an album.
We were kind of getting into that.
I love when we did that, man. I think everyone did.
Fucking, we should have done it more.
We should have done it every single fucking show, man.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
I know. Looking back on it now, yeah. But you know, just to keep breaking down elements of this album, right? Like what we love and what we don't love. I think this album has some of the best lyrics of any Rx Bandits record.
It is. I mean, it's hard to compare. It's like the lyrics in Rx Bandit songs have always been very colorful and very like they've never been lacking in any sort of way for me.
They've always been good.
I'd say aside from
cringy, like showing their age a little bit in the earlier stuff, you know, but you can't fault them for that.
I'd say aside from like the second song on this record, Just Another Parsec, like it's a lot less preachy than usual.
Yes.
Which is nice. It's seems this album is a lot more introspective.
It's Obama era, baby.
But we did it.
I'm just saying.
Homestuck era.
Just saying, dude. They were they were at their prime of writing really political shit during Bush administration.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, yes, I think before their lyrics were a lot more pointed and almost on the nose sometimes. Like every song had a message almost for 2 records at least. Like Resignation for sure. Resignation I think was like their most. Yeah. But even Progress, like on Progress they talk about a lot of cultural, societal stuff. And The Battle Begun I think had a lot of that too. But I think And The Battle Begun started getting a lot more personal with Matt's personal kind of demons that he was dealing with and like addiction stuff that showed up a lot on And The Battle Begun.
It's not like that was unknown in previous records.
No, it was definitely referenced, but I think And The Battle Begun had a focus on it on a lot of those songs. But this album has, I think, some of the most poetic lyrics that he's ever written, and I don't know what the fuck he's talking about on most of these songs.
It seems like, I don't know. It's like he knows what he's talking about.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah, I know that
like,
there's a theme, there's a message there, but goddamn, I don't know what I can't pick up on it. And I read through the lyrics multiple times, and for there's no lack of appreciation of the lyrics, but it's just kind of, I'm reading through them and like I have no idea what this guy's talking about on this album. I love these lyrics and I have no idea what they mean. You know,
there are some times when it's a little more straightforward, like on White Lies. I feel like is a pretty. It's like,
is it? I still don't really know what he's talking about. To me, what's he talking about on White Lies?
I don't want to sing that same old song again. Don't want to fight the same old war. He just fucking like
fighting with his girl or something.
No,
see what I mean? What's he talking about? What's your interpretation?
I guess to me, he feels like he's been going through these same old habits, and he keeps saying these lies to himself that he's gonna change, and he wants to stop doing these white lies to himself, and like actually change his life, change these things that he doesn't like about himself.
I don't want to live this way.
Because it tells me away from you.
When I feel the hopelessness, I'm all alone in a crowded room. Oh, so good.
It's. We might be talking about that song later on.
Spoilies.
Who knows?
Dude, and that's again like I can't believe it took me. I mean, obviously, I loved this album for a decade now, but it's so weird to go back to it and listen to it again, like in preparation for this show, and then forget how fucking fun it is to sing along to this record. Because you mentioned when we first started, you mentioned like, oh, it's not as catchy as some of the earlier stuff, and I kind of disagree. This album is catchy.
Really,
as fuck. This album is super fun to sing along with.
I feel like as a whole, it's probably the least singable album from Rx Bandits. Yeah, that's how I see it. I mean, when you fucking compare it to the Resignation, which has
I
all these
mean,
like anthemic rock
yeah,
songs in it, you
yeah.
know.
And then Progress, which has all these awesome ska punk songs that
Yeah.
are always going to be catchy. Lots of major chord
Yeah.
stuff, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Yeah. I think
But
their least catchy songs are actually on "And the Battle Begun."
I I don't think I'm gonna disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
Uh
But
and
I think,
I'm also not gonna fucking turn my nose up at you saying there are some good fucking sing songs on here, because
dude,
I fucking agree.
I
We
mean,
were just like singing "Hearts at Hanker for Mistake," and
yeah.
then I have this might be weird, but I have "Lonesome Only Friend" on my skate playlist,
Oh, it's a great song.
and I just fucking, I try to run, but I can
Can
only crawl. At the time I dance, and I slip and
only
surely fall. Oh no, I take my
my
last
last
breath.
breath. Hey, get it. Get
You
it.
know when he does the fucking,
Oh, dude, that makes me cream every single time.
I fucking love it,
And then
dude.
we were talking about like white lies. I don't want to
Yeah.
sing the same old
Oh,
song
song
again.
again.
Like super jazzy, like
Yeah.
super sexy. Like Matt's voice is so sexy on this album. It's like, just
It,
take me.
is this the sexiest album, or is that like Gemini?
No, Gemini's not the sexiest album.
No, you don't think Gemini's a
No,
sexy
no,
album?
no.
Okay.
We weren't ready, Eddie. No, that's not sexy. I think this album is his sexiest stuff for sure. But I kind of agree with you, because I'm listening to it, while we're talking, and I kind of agree that like it sounds like it's not catchy, but it so is, man. It's so catchy, and I think it's because it's not traditionally catchy. The melodies are weird on this album. They're
I,
super jazzy.
I mean, it's maybe that weirdness that kind of stands out to you
Yeah.
at each listen, and it gets in your head, because like March of the Caterpillar, like I'm always gonna have that fucking riff in my head, because it's like a really weird,
So weird.
the fucking
Dude, and it's like the,
conversation.
like Bury It Down Low, where that fucking like
Yeah,
like
right.
I ripped off that thing for a song also.
I really want to get a playlist of like songs you ripped off, and like the
Oh,
parts they are. I'd
I
like
could
some timestamps,
I could make
please.
a list. Yeah, I've done that a lot with Rx Bandits, and randomly a lot with Bad Religion. I guess that's not so random, but the random one is a band called John Brown's Body. Uh,
I've
Reggae
never
band,
heard of them.
New York reggae band. They have an album called Amplify that is incredible. One of the best reggae, like modern reggae albums I've ever heard. Super different,
Shit.
super weird, really cool, and I ripped off a lot of their shit in college, in my band in college.
I feel like you can't say modern when it's an album that came out fucking 15 years ago.
Yeah, well, yeah. God damn it. I have trouble realizing that I'm not
Sorry, bud.
25 anymore.
You're basically a fossil at this point.
Uh, what before we move on from the lyrics thing, I would say that the most on point or straightforward lyrics are the last song on the record.
It's like bringing the children home.
Bring Our Children Home, or Everything Is Nothing. Pretty obvious what he's talking about there.
Yeah, I'd say that one gets back into maybe a more like pointed political song.
Little on the nose. But what was cool was that he's talking about like the war on terror, fighting a rich man's war, all that stuff. But it reminds me a lot of the message on Pink Floyd's "Bring the Boys Back Home" on the wall.
Sure. Yeah.
Pretty like very very similar. But Matt is just on a new level on this album. Like he sounds so passionate on
Yeah.
this album.
He there's a lot of heart on this album.
He's really like, it sounds like he is just like bleeding heart stuff on this record, like putting it all out there. He sounds like I would imagine him being exhausted at the end of every single song. He's singing at the top of his register on so much of this shit.
Yeah. it's a weird criticism for an album that's so generally not straightforward, but I kind of wish that last song was a little more straightforward.
The
When the
last song
fucking
is the worst
chorus
song.
hits, it's kind of rough, man. Like my favorite part of the entire song is when like the chorus hits like dinner I'm gonna bring my children home, and like
Oh, that's the
for
best
like
part.
a bar, maybe a bar and a half.
Yeah.
Like Chris, the drummer, is his name Chris?
Chris, yeah.
I always forget. He's like doing a and then it changes to a slower beat, and it's like fuck, man. I wish that part was longer, but maybe
It
that's
makes me
part of why
love
it's so
that part.
good.
It makes me love that part so much because it makes you want more. And it's like when you hear that in the middle of a chorus, like they switch rhythm.
It's like a blast beat. It
Yeah.
becomes like a blast beat out
It's
of
like
nowhere.
like he's doing like bring your children so good. I would say it's probably like also the jazziest song on the record. So it allows them to be a little bit more kind of out there a little bit.
Free form.
But that
Yeah.
chorus is so good. You can really hear, like, talking about how Matt is on another level on this record. You can really hear that bring our children home. Like, it sounds like he is belting that out, you know?
Yeah.
But I agree. I think that's the worst song on the record, but I do love the part where they say, stay true, my brother.
Stay true, my boy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
so
a cool
rocking,
part.
dude.
I feel like there's kind of a low point around the end for me, kind of like on Breakfast Cat and Bled to Be Free.
Yeah. Breakfast
I
Cat has the weird, crazy metal intro that it's fucking weird.
which is it's like a lot and I always kind of lose focus on the last song. It's like 6 minutes and I always feel like I only hear like 3 minutes of it.
Kind of like a going out with a whimper a little bit.
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't say it's the worst ending to an Rx Bandits album.
That is an interesting.
They're always very good about their endings,
They are.
which I appreciate, and they're always really good about their track order and
Yes.
like going into songs seamlessly. I love that. It happens on this album, happens on every fucking Rx Bandits album because they know how to make a fucking album.
They really do. They really do. I think like a big reason why Matt sounds so next level on this album is I think also the lack of restriction in the songwriting. It sounds like he's like excited on this album. Like he sounds
Kinda like-
energized.
Yeah, there's more color, which is so weird that the next album after this, Gemini, sounds to me like the most uninspired
Yes.
album that
Yeah.
they've made.
It sounds like B-sides.
Yeah, and it's just like it's so weird.
I like a lot of it still, but it's my I mean next to like Those Damn Bandits, it's probably my least favorite Rx Bandits record.
It's definitely my least favorite from like I feel like comparing it to the first part of their career is a little unfair because it's so vastly different.
Yeah. It's true. I mean I
But-
think this band more than any other changed so much through the years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
AFI's up there for sure.
AFI's up there. Maybe I don't know if you would say Pink Floyd. They kind of like had 2 albums and then became Pink Floyd.
Yeah, exactly. Like and even like later Pink Floyd, like after Roger Waters left, is still really good.
Yeah, but it's still kind of the same vibe.
Same vibe
Like,
for sure.
I would-
If anything, it got more 80s because they were
Yeah.
in the 80s. You know,
it was I would say this is probably, if I had to put it up to a band, this is the band that's changed the most throughout their career.
right? Like,
And
in
still
the best way too.
still very kind of like a seamless transition through each album.
Yeah, it's
Which
not like they
is-
turned around and wrote a hip hop record like out of nowhere or anything. It's like everything makes
Like-
sense
Yeah, it makes sense.
in the context of this band, but Mandala, this album made the least sense to me when it came out when I first heard it.
Sure.
So it's
Yeah.
like this one had the most uphill climb of any of the records for me to like get into it and understand
Mm.
it. But man, so good. So
Let's
good.
get into. Do you want to get into fucking? Are we doing ratings first? Or are we doing nugs?
Um, how do you want to do it? I don't know.
I think it might. My rating might be interesting to you.
Let's do it, man. Let's do a little nugget of your overall review and then your rating.
Yeah. This is for as long as I've liked Rx Bandits, this has been my favorite record by them. And that's, I fucking love Mars Volta.
Yes.
I love the progginess. I love the progginess with the kind of fast-paced music and the kind of chaotic drums, the weird riffs. Matt's voice, amazing
Yeah.
all the time.
And you mentioned the
Uh,
drums. Like as a drummer, I feel like
I mean, it's it's like I'm never at a loss for something to listen to on the drums. There's
seriously,
always something new that comes out to me after each listen,
I am
right?
every time I listen to an RX Bandit song, I am singing along and I'm playing the drums at the same time.
Yeah, it's almost to a point where it's like it was very hard for me to focus on like the bass or what
Yeah.
each individual guitar is doing just cuz I'm always and it's not a secret. The drums are pushed up pretty hard in the
They
mix.
know what they have.
They know what they got.
Yeah, they know
They
what they
know
got
what they fucking got.
for sure.
You know what? I'll fucking tell you this. Uh in the times that we were listening to this album, I could not get past the fact that fuck. I'm in a resignation mood this whole
Yeah,
time. I was just all we've been listening to that album for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
at least.
At least when we first had the idea to listen to it.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly didn't have to listen to it more than twice because I know this
Yeah,
album front to
right.
back. Yeah.
But
But
like
it did give me a different perspective those two times for sure.
maybe this has never been a part of it, but man, I really wish I could have fucking smoked to this album.
You still can.
Just I not right now,
Not right now.
later.
You're on a pause right now.
But I think just where my life has been at the moment, it's hard to kind of come take a seat back and relax and let the music take me where this album wants to take me.
Yeah.
Whereas something like The Resignation, it'll have its soft moments, it'll have its little jammy moments, but a lot of it is just fucking like the rockin' Gibson guitar shit that I want right now.
Yeah, such a key aspect of Resignation is the Gibson Les Pauls.
Yeah.
Such a
And
key aspect to the tone of that record.
I would also say it's a lot easier to listen to record like that kind of record. I've always listened to this album as an entire record. I've hardly ever picked out individual songs except for like the first two maybe.
Mhm.
Whereas Resignation, I think it'd be a lot easier for me to like pick out songs throughout the
Sure.
album. Fucking that being said, amazing musicianship, amazing vocals, lyrics, drum work's fantastic. All the things I've said about this album before, I stick by. This couple weeks, this couple months, it was not hitting me
Oh.
like it had been. Now I'm still like the rating on this one, the rating I'm gonna give it is like a 9.4.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So it's like it's still up there.
Yeah.
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 It's like, but I've given it a 10 before.
Wow.
And I would stick to it being a 10 out of 10 record. My just personal enjoyment of this month where I'm just fucking kind of like spazzed out. I can't really relax. It's a little less.
Wow.
And the weaker songs that didn't quite get me before kind of didn't even get me less, you know?
Like
but
Breakfast Cat.
yeah, like Breakfast Cat, even like Bury It Down Low.
Yeah, Bury It Down Low, Bled to Be Free. Like you said,
Um,
that the last third of the album.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Still, a 9.4 is pretty
Jesus.
fucking crazy. You know,
Yeah,
I would
it's still an
recommend
amazing
it.
score.
But this week, I think the Resignation would be higher.
So, is this not your favorite Rx Bandits record anymore?
Um, I don't know. I guess I'll have to fucking. I took a little listen to the other records to kind of get more context.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling, honestly, I was even feeling "And the Battle Begun"
So
a
good.
little more than this record
Yeah.
right now.
My top three are Resignation, Progress, and Then the Battle Begun.
Which I think is bullshit, but okay.
Wow. So Mandala is still in your top three.
It's still in my top three for sure. And it's like, it's always going to be in my top 50 favorite albums. It's
Okay.
always going to be probably in my top 20, 15 favorite albums.
So that means you have two RX Bandits records in your top 15.
I mean, Resignation's up there. This album's up there. It's not like they've ever made a bad album.
True.
But those two in particular stand out a lot. And if, depending on how long the list is, I might put a third one up there.
Damn.
But
Wow,
I
9.4.
I love this band, man. They're in my like top 5 favorite bands.
Yeah, I mean they are my favorite band. I would love to do a top 5 favorite bands. That'd be so hard to figure out. But
Fuck, I mean, I have a go-to answer, but
I can tell you 3 right off the bat.
that might be a cool chit chat. We might
That
have to
would,
do that.
yeah, we haven't done a
sometime
chit
soon.
chat in a while too.
We should do that.
So
And then like favorite albums, favorite songs, or something like that from those bands.
Even harder, but by those bands. Okay, yes, I can do that.
By those bands. By those bands.
Okay, because some of my favorite songs are not from my favorite bands.
I feel like favorite songs would be like
That'd be way too hard.
maybe asking
Like,
a little too much.
That's literally going to like 36 and 28 years of life to like mine that shit. Fuck that.
Yeah.
9.4, amazing rating. I'm gonna be a little lower.
Okay.
I again like took a long time for this album to grow on me, but it did. I love this record now. This isn't my favorite Rx Bandits record. It's not in the top 3, but I do love this album. And to say it grew on me over time would be an understatement, because it's not like this grew on me. Like I genuinely love this album, but I had to get used to it. I had to accept it. But Only Another Parsec, Mientras lo veo soñar, White Lies. I mean, those are some of the best Rx Bandit songs in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then those 3 are on this record. This felt like a very focused album, even if the focus is on being manic and all over the place and like free of the
And
shackles
meandering.
Yeah, like free of this kind of whatever the shackles the horns supposedly put them in. It feels focused on just allowing themselves the freedom to just write whatever they want, however they want to write it, to the point where, like we mentioned, that some songs don't even have like a general structure to them. Like a couple of these songs are just kind of like, where's the chorus? Where's the, it's cool in that way. This album is an experience. Like you said, they're so good at making a track listing. They're so good at taking you through a journey. And this album is no less of a journey and a full encompassing piece of work than any of their previous stuff before it. Like they still did it on this album, and they did it really, really well. I was honestly exhausted after listening to this record the first time for this show, because I was singing along to every single word. I was drumming. I always like mouthed the riffs too, and it was like I was having so much fun, but like emotionally and mentally exhausted at the end of it after the first time. And it had been a while since I listened to this whole record, like as a whole too.
Right. It's a long record. It's like an hour long. Right?
It's a long record for sure, especially for our Spanish. They're usually around the 40-minute range. I was exhausted, but I was also really inspired. I was really like motivated and moved and like emotional. And it's just a beautiful album. And they killed it, and I really commend them for their fearlessness on this record of just like they weren't worried about alienating their fans. They didn't seem concerned about the expectations that people had of what an RX Bandits record was going to be. Like they just fucking did what they wanted to do. And I really, really respect that. So I'm going to give it like an 8.5.
Okay.
Still
8.5.
Still A tier, you know?
Sure.
I think the S tier records for me, again, are Resignation, Progress.
Oh, whoa. You'll have to watch the video.
Oh, that's right. Save it. Go watch our ratings tier list. I forgot we did that already. Was that our first chit chat?
That was our first chit chat.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Our first everything has got to be some Rx Bandit shit or another.
Yeah, I think this is our third or fourth episode talking about Rx Bandits.
Specifically, we've probably talked about them.
Oh, I'm sure they come up all the time. Yeah. But with that said,
let's get in fucking nugs.
Let's do our honorable mentions. Let's do our choice nugs, our two favorite songs. What are some of your honorable mentions?
Some of my honorables are gonna be "It's Only Another Parsec."
So good.
Such good song. Still don't know what the fuck he's doing on drums.
Yeah.
March of the Caterpillar.
I love March of the Caterpillar also. That's another one that took time to grow on me, but so good.
I fucking love it.
Yeah.
And then fucking Hope is a Butterfly. I love how starkly it changes so quickly.
It's so weird.
You know, that transition is so cool to me. Hearts That Hanker and Mientras.
Yes.
My honorables.
So pretty much every song except the last four. And your two choices.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. But one of my honorable mentions, which I think is going to be one of your choice nugs, is Lonesome Only Friend.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is.
It's just so RX Bandits-y. It's the most classic RX Bandits song on the album.
It starts off with a nice kind of like almost funky, weird guitar riff, which I only noticed listening this time that it's like a lot more like in and out with kind of what it's doing. Like
in the intro?
Yeah, in the intro, because there's like and it's just like going along.
It has this like pseudo reggae feel to the whole song too.
Yeah, especially like in the verse.
Yeah.
The morning in the dark of the night. But then fucking classic RX Bandits build up, explosion, fucking all I can just to let you run. Setting sun, oh no, I take my last breath. My lonesome only friend. Fucking, I love that fucking chorus. I sing it all the time.
Is it the first solo on an RX Bandits album, a song also?
It might just be, and it seems like they're going back and forth.
Yes, it's so
between
cool.
the two of them,
going back and forth. But you'd never heard that on an RX Bandits song before. That like that. They never did that before. This song,
and then. What that fucking line, like, I try to run, but I can only and fucking Chris does this monster drum fill, to complement it, and then
it's just such a great opener. It's such a great opener, and I love the glitchy outro. That boom.
Yeah, right. And it kind of like goes into the second song.
Yeah, which so good. And that is such a throwback RX Bandits thing, and I love it.
What are some of your other honorables?
It's Only Another Parsec. So good. March of the Caterpillar, so good. Bury It Down Low, I actually had as one of my honorable mentions.
Okay.
It's just minus the horns, it's just a very RX Bandits like throwbacky song, and I have specifically like a line that he says like Nobody else to blame. Oh yeah, nobody else to blame.
Yeah.
Not
No,
at
not at
all.
all.
Boom. Yeah,
Yeah.
so good. Bled to be free. I thought was a really fun.
Really?
Yeah, because it's more of the Mars Volta y stuff. That intro is just insane sounding. A little overwhelming, and then that
I
like
feel like
so weird. Yeah,
I feel like
the
that
drums are
was
insane.
it's hard to say that Chris has was overplaying, but I feel like if I could choose any song where he is overplaying on drums, it would be that
It's
song.
Bled to be free for sure, but it's like, what
Yeah.
else can you do to that type of guitar part? I mean, he had to have that energy. He had to bring that energy. You know,
Yeah, but I feel like maybe a little, well,
it's a
maybe a
bit
little
much,
too much.
but I love the chorus. The chorus like weirdly gets like reggae and chill. And then I love when the song just switches up. Operation, and then he's
Yeah.
just just like like strumming that part. It's just so
Gotta get out, better get out.
yeah, never care. And then they have that sort of like Iron Maiden-y type of guitar solo. Like, they're doing like the fucking hammer pull off thing.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that
like
again. You
the
never heard that.
tappies.
Yeah, you never heard that on an expanded song. And like the lead parts are just so good on that one. But I mean, it was hard to pick a favorite to be honest, but my favorite that has always been my favorite on this album is Mientras la veo soñar.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, aside from even just like the Spanish, the fucking vocals
Yeah.
throughout the like the verses, he goes back to English in the choruses,
Yeah,
if I
he
remember
does.
correctly.
He does. Yeah, but I love the verse riff that it's like so Latin jazz. It's so good, and that chorus, the Bennett Bennett,
Yeah.
I
Running
think
in water, running in
your
consciousness.
consciousness,
Dang.
feel like
Yeah,
it's
it's very groovy.
one of the catchiest choruses they've ever written, and so bopping. Like, it's how do you not dance to that rhythm?
It's
You know,
fucking.
it's so good.
I feel it.
And it's a weird rhythm, but it's awesome. It was super progressive. I love when they come back to the second chorus or the second verse, but it's just kind of trippy. Like they just change it up just enough in the second chorus. They're not doing the same riff.
Yeah.
The progression of the song, like where they go back and forth from certain musical elements, but just change it enough to keep it interesting. It's just so well done. They're not doing the same thing again ever in this song. Like the second chorus is different, the second verse is different. Like everything changes slightly.
Yeah.
I
And
also
then it ends off with like a whole jammy
so
thing for
good.
like the last 3 minutes.
So good, like nonsensical, like guitar twiddling. That sounds so Mars Volta-y to me, but it doesn't feel like a ripoff or like a sad imitation. Like it's just Rx Bandits doing their thing. They make it their own,
Yeah.
and I love that every line in the chorus is harmonized. That just adds such a cool element to it. And like you
Yeah.
said, that outro, that fucking the slow build towards the end with that electric like Latin jazz piano with the drums slowly building up in intensity, and then they just leave you with like these musical blue balls that I just respect so much. I love that
And
song.
it's good fucking shit. And I think the last nug that we share
We share
is
it.
also good fucking shit. I know for a fact.
White lies,
White
man.
lies. Don't want to sing the same old song again. It's just so fucking. It's a beautiful, beautiful fucking song through the whole thing. I love this little like. It's almost like a marching snare
Yes.
beat.
Yeah. Like
Yeah, it's like, why would that work? But it does.
shouldn't. Yeah,
It's
there's so
like,
many things that Chris does that shouldn't work. That do.
yeah,
Yeah, I love the electric organ. The whole song is just so like
yeah,
relaxing, and love to sing along. Like it's easier to say it.
yeah. Harder still to execute.
And the ahs and the ohs is just so nice. I don't want to live this way.
Yeah.
It's
Cuz
so catchy. What is the count on this song? Because they somehow can make it really groove and then super swingy and smooth, but the count is weird.
it's like 3/4 to 4/4 or something like that. I don't know, man.
I don't. It's
It's
yeah. It seems like they switch it up, right? Like it's not the same time signature the whole song.
No, I don't think so. I
It
think
almost
I
seems
think they
like
switch it up.
yeah. It almost seems like every other measure is like 4/5 and then 4/4 or something. That they're going back and forth between the two. It's really weird. And the strings really threw me off. That's the first time you heard strings on an Rx Bandits song, and it really threw me off when I first heard it. I was like, "What is this fucking Coldplay ass shit?" But I love it now. It almost sounds like
But it
something from OK
fucking
Computer or something. Like it has this Radiohead feel to it,
yeah, I can see that.
right?
And then I love it. It's starting to build up, you know, and it's adding more vocals and stuff, and then just like a little like weird drum fill. I don't want to live this way. Just
Right
like
back to
goes
that
right back.
chorus. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah, I love that where they have the strings going with the acoustic guitar and the
yeah,
tambourine and that cool little like lead that the acoustic guitar is playing in the background. That's what gave it more Radiohead vibes to me. Also, was having this acoustic out of nowhere playing,
yeah.
which is not something they really did before either. So Radioheady, and yeah, once they transition from the bridge to the last chorus with that little simple drum fill,
Ugh,
is just one
fucking
of the tastiest
tasteful,
things, dude. Yeah,
tasteful.
just it's so good. It's so good. This guys, if you have not heard this album, listen to this fucking album.
Please listen to Rx Bandits. I
Oh shit!
beg you. I beg
If
you.
us, hearing two random ass people talk about it for an hour has not motivated you to listen to it, I don't know what will. You
I
know,
don't know what else we could do for you.
I don't know what else we could do to convince you to listen to this record, dude. So good, and I'm so glad that we went back to this. We went back to our roots of like
We've decided to go back to the classic catches.
yes,
Uh, you know, just fucking. It's nice to have a just fucking guaranteed banger. You
yeah.
know,
It's nice to know that for the most part we're gonna go into the album loving it already. You know,
at least one of us,
at
and
least one of
even
us
if it's like a new record to both of us, we're doing this new record for a reason. You know,
for sure.
and so gonna be
Yeah,
doing this for a while. Is it gonna be permanent? I don't know.
we'll see, man. But this is going back to what we started this show to be, was to talk about albums that we know we at least one of us loves, and it was such a. I went into this with such a different energy than we have had for the fresh drops and everything. Like the fresh drops is always like very kind of timid, a little bit of like trepidation.
Yeah.
And this was like, what a great, you picked the perfect record for us to go back to this format. It's like, oh, what a perfect way to go back.
And
What a great way to be like, welcome back into what we were doing before.
what are we doing next week, my man?
That's a really good question. I literally opened up the list right here and I want to do something a little different.
Okay.
We, and this is an album that I know I love, but I'm not sure how you are going to feel about this record. And I really want to go back and listen to it because it's been a while since I've heard this album. I want to listen to Around the Fur by Deftones and talk about that.
Okay. I've tried out Deftones a couple times. I've never quite I I feel like there must be an album or some songs that hit the perfect note for me, but I haven't found them yet. We'll see
Hey, because
if
I think,
this
I
fucking
think,
gets me.
uh, you might hate it, you might love it. I don't know, because Around the Fur to me is almost like And the Battle Begun or Mandala, where it's a transition phase, I think, for Deftones. This is where they started incorporating more of their kind of shoegaze stuff that they do.
Where they kind of ventured away from their new metal
Right.
shit more into a kind of like
Almost art rock, shoegazy.
yeah,
Think
or
like White
into the
Pony.
whisper era.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
There's whispers on this album, but it is the midpoint, and it's the album that got me into Deftones. It has a fucking My Own Summer on it, which is the first song I heard by Deftones.
I've heard that one.
Such a good fucking song.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a midpoint. So there's some really heavy shit on there, but there's some really kind of spacey, shoegazy, airy stuff in there as well. So that's what we're listening to next, buddies. Around
All
the
right.
Fern.
If you're fucking interested, Instagram, EBPcast. We're on YouTube, Earbuds Podcast. We're on fucking Spotify.
We're on Spotify.
Baby.
What sucks is that I just found out that if we put songs on the albums, you can't hear them anywhere else but Spotify.
No, yeah, it's just Spotify.
Kind of a bummer. I thought you'd at least be able to hear 30 seconds listening to it on any other platform. So unfortunately, you can't really hear our songs on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts anymore. And it's like, let us know what you guys think. Leave us a comment or like hit us up on Instagram or something. Do you guys like that we're putting our choice snugs on the episodes? Like, have you listened? Go listen to our episodes on Spotify because you can actually hear our 2 favorite songs. Like, we put them into the episode and we just pause our conversation. We listen to the whole song and then go back and you hear what we thought about that song. Like, is it worth it to you guys, or would you rather just be able to access us anywhere and not have music on our music podcast? It's such a weird like thing that we have to accept. It's like, okay, if we put music on our music podcast, they can only hear it in one place. It's kind of a bummer. I guess YouTube
you can hear the music list version on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but
it's a bummer.
I don't know. Should we do what we can to get it on Apple Podcasts? Does anyone really even? It seems to me like people only really use Spotify.
Well,
for music and podcasts.
Looking at the stats and everything, a lot of our listens come from Apple.
Well, fucking comment down. We'll fucking hear what you have to say.
Let us know, man, because we're thinking having music on our music podcast is better for everyone, but I didn't realize that it would be so limiting in the audience. So if you guys feel like you don't need the music and you can go listen to these songs on your own, whatever, you don't need us to put it in there, then great. But let us know, man. I want to know for sure.
Lucas, this was good, bud.
Dude, this was good, man. We haven't recorded in a long time. So much fucking fun. and yeah, going back to our roots a little bit has been really fun and honestly like the refresh that I needed. So
yeah, for
super
sure.
fun, man. This was good.
Fucking see ya, bud.
Bye.
Bye. And